Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers have more information about the seller and the business to help them make buying decision. Just before we dive into today's interview, let me go over a very brief summary of the business. It is an affiliate and display advertising business created in June 2017 in the sports niche. The average monthly revenue for the business is $21,785, and it makes an average of $20,202 per month in net profit. The assets included in the sale are the domain and all of the site's contents and files, a variety of social media pages and accounts, and a list of writer applications. Please note you must have currently approved AdSense account before purchasing this business to ensure a successful migration. And for everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 57677 to learn more about the business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So that's a really brief overview of the business, and let's hear from the seller. Jake, pleasure to welcome you to the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Vinny. Thanks for having me on, mate.
No, it's absolutely our pleasure. Really interesting business you've got going. And let's just find out about yourself. Can you share with me, what your background is in building or running online businesses?
Yeah, I guess it takes me back. I just started building websites as a hobby, and I've been doing that basically for about 7 years now. Yeah, and over the years, I've just kind of fell in love with all of the concepts of building a website, such as SEO, backlink building, even the social media kind of stuff as well, like social media marketing. And yeah, just over the years, I've developed my knowledge of all these different concepts and brought them all together. And yeah, it's got me where we are today with this business.
Jake, that absolutely makes sense. It sounds like, from grassroots level, you learnt about online businesses, as we all did, about affiliate marketing, SEO, and just sort of how to generate revenue. So I suppose that leads us to, how did you come up with the idea to start this business in particular?
Yeah, so I think that just stemmed from my passion for this sport in particular. Yeah, I used to participate in the sport myself, and I really enjoyed it. And on the weekends, I would just find myself sitting there while watching the sport. I'd take notes and try to learn as much as I could about the sport. And then I wanted to share all my knowledge with everyone else. So I started to look for ways to do that. It all started with the Instagram. I made an Instagram account back in the day. Well, that's many years ago now. And then I just wanted to take that to the next level. So I started to bring that following over to the website where I can build a lasting business from that.
Makes sense for sure. I noticed that the business is monetized in a few different ways. Can you briefly share, how does this business make money?
Yeah, so it's mostly just from affiliates. It's actually close to 99% of our revenue is from affiliate sales right now. And that was never our intention. But the way the sport has changed, this particular sport, it changed in 2019, and it presented a massive opportunity to work with affiliates, especially one in particular. So we've developed a strong partnership with affiliates since then in the most recent couple of years. And all of my attention since then has been developing this relationship and maximizing this opportunity.
That makes sense. Okay, so mainly from affiliates. Why would you say that this particular business model is really good for people who are getting interested in starting off with online businesses? I suppose if you could talk to yourself when you first started off, what would you say to yourself?
Well, I really enjoy a couple of aspects about this particular online business. Probably the main one is that the way it's structured, it's really low cost and it is low risk. Because we're working with affiliates and affiliate sales, there's no customer service, there's no product that we're providing. We're basically just generating revenue by linking our visitors who would have been there anyway to the affiliate website. So it's really organic, it's really natural. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure to run in that sense.
For sure. Given that you've managed to scale the site to its current size, our listeners will be wondering, why are you selling the business instead of, staying with it or growing it?
Yeah, I guess the biggest difficulty is I'm based in Australia and this sport is American based. And I guess like when I was extremely passionate about this sport in particular in 2016, 17, 18, I used to stay up and I used to watch a sport at certain times. Over the years, like that probably has gone away a little bit, and especially noticed that this year where I haven't been following it as closely as I used to. Yeah, it's interesting to me because like I did build this business really just from the passion element of it all. Now it's disappearing. Yeah, I just found myself working less on the website. And I guess that is a pretty strong indicator to me that it probably is time to move on, especially considering that the performance this year is better than any other. I would have expected myself to actually ramp up my commitment.
That makes sense. And it sounds like a very natural point in time to pass the baton on to the next person who has hopefully a similar passion for the same niche, for the same sport, and be able to drive it to the next level. Because like you said, it's hard to work on something if you lost that drive and that passion. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And Vinny, just on that, like I think I really enjoyed like the beginning aspects of building a business as well. So like just getting it started and getting it off the ground and like running it like as lean as possible as well. And I think like it probably is ready for like someone to come in there and take that next step to scale it up if they wanted to. And I've never really had experience in taking that additional step where you're hiring people to come into those different roles. And yeah, I guess that is another indicator for me as well.
That makes sense. I want to ask you about your experience when you were building this business then. Was there anything that you learned as you were building it, as you were scaling it, that you just found really worked for you?
I guess just focus on creating great content. So we're a content website. And I always found that the better that our content was, the more that it had not only like a short-term impact on our traffic and revenue, but also had like a long-lasting impact as well. So you start to build backlinks organically because even competitors would start to link to your content because they would like some of those ideas and then content as well. So I focus on good content for sure, something that I found really worked.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think that's the reason why that phrase "content is king" has sort of lasted the test of time, right? Because like you say, out of all the other sort of tactics you can do, creating just good content that really helps your audience is one of the best ways to build that audience and to increase your revenue over time. If we look on the other side of the same coin, was there anything that you tried that didn't give you the ROI you were hoping for?
Yeah, there's been a lot. Like I'm always testing new ideas. I love to test new things and assess and see how they go. Like I can think of a couple off the top of my head, and probably the main one that stands out is that you always see online businesses that have email lists. And I guess I try to incorporate that into the business we had here. And that never really worked out. I'm not sure if it's just because of this particular niche and it probably wasn't a good fit, but maybe it is just because I've never had experience myself with building email lists as well. But that's something that definitely just didn't work for me. I guess also I found like I wasn't really interested in that. I really like the organic kind of approach too. So I went back and tried to stick to my strengths.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you about the traffic side of things, because you mentioned, email. The majority of the traffic comes from, is it organic?
Yeah, I think it's 83% of our traffic right now is from organic search.
Mm-hmm. And that's all generated via just SEO, just inbound traffic.
Yeah, we perform like really well in Google News actually. It's like exceptional for like our sport because you kind of want to be in front of everyone at the right times, and Google News helps us do that. So whether that's like in the couple of days before an event or during an event even, or immediately after an event, like we're always there in Google News. Yeah, that's where the vast majority of our traffic comes from.
Makes sense. I guess in terms of active marketing then, what do you do for marketing in the business?
Yeah, so not a lot right now, actually, Vinny. I've kind of turned that off, I guess. And it's not ideal, but it's more of like a time constraint, I guess. And I haven't really put the same time into social media and all those other aspects lately. So at the moment, we're completely relying on Google to do all the work for us, which is a good thing, right? Like it keeps it passive, which is what I was seeking. But I guess there are opportunities there for social to pick up again.
That makes sense for sure. There was just something that caught my eye when I was looking at the earnings chart and the traffic chart as well. Your regular earnings and regular traffic are really good. They look quite stable. But I did notice there are a few months where there seems to be like really huge spikes. I just wanted to ask, what was going on there?
Yeah, so this particular sport, it has a unique schedule. And I think that probably is what sets it apart from other sports. I guess a lot of sports go through like a regular season and an off season. This one in particular, it runs year long, but I guess like the level of interest can change because athletes don't compete as often as they would in other sports. So it just really depends on the size of the event. And interestingly enough, normally there's only probably 2 or 3 big events every year. So that would explain like the big spikes in January and July in 2021. So it's interesting. Like I've always assessed the site's performance on a year-to-year basis, as that is probably a better representation of just the flows of this sport in particular, and the fact that some athletes may only compete once per year. So yeah, like on a month-to-month basis, there's definitely huge spikes. Yeah, I've always tried to look at it from the annual basis and notice that. So the spikes that you mentioned, like in January and July, they were due to major events in the sport. I'm expecting 2 events of a similar size to take place in 2022. So like we should start to see that same performance on an annual basis follow through over the years.
Got it. Okay. So sure. Thanks for sharing that. I guess a bit more context around those particular, jumps in traffic and earnings. I just want to move over now in terms of the work required to maintain the business. Can you describe to me on like a day-to-day or even a weekly basis what your personal workload looks like?
Yes, I'm not doing a lot right now. I think on average it works out to be about 4 hours per week. At the moment, I'm just kind of planning and editing the content before publishing on the website. And there are some weeks where there is not much work required at all, and it's probably less than 2 hours per week. But as we shape up to those bigger events, like I mentioned, I do tend to work closer to 10, 15 hours in those weeks to really maximize those opportunities because, yeah, as anyone could see from the listing page, there are huge spikes and I want to make the most of those opportunities when they do come.
Got it, for sure. For the new owner, the buyer, what would you say are some of the skills that they would need in order to be successful at running this business and really hit the ground running once it transitions into their hands?
I think basic skills such as like navigating WordPress and all of that would be a great start, obviously, to plan, edit, and publish the content. Anyone with a good SEO background could really take this to the next level for sure. I've always just taught myself via learning and experience, but like if someone comes in with a background in SEO, they could really take this to another level. I think those are probably the 2 main skills, SEO and just basic content skills as well. Identifying trends, whether that's by Google Trends or however else someone does like to find those content opportunities. Interestingly, like as for the sport itself, not much knowledge is required actually. You could kind of just pick it up really quickly and learn the schedule and work with that from there.
Okay, makes sense. If you stayed with the business, Jake, what would you say are some of the growth opportunities that you would try to drive?
Yeah, the number one opportunity would be to address the volatility. And I think the best way to do that is by covering other sports. So at the moment, we're like heavily exposed to the schedule of this one sport. But if we branch out and cover similar sports, we can really smooth out the data over that year-long basis and start to see more consistency. That is a big opportunity, and I did test that in November and experienced some success as well. So I was like really happy to see how that performed. I think the site is well positioned to like benefit from scaling up as well. So the site has a really strong brand. At the moment, we have a list of 120 people who have applied to write for the website. I just haven't had the time to go through and bring them on just yet, or bring on the select few that would be good additions to the team. So scaling up, producing more content is also another great way to make the most of our performance on Google News. As an example, I can recall speaking to the team earlier about how we produced less content this year, but our page views increased significantly. And also our revenue has doubled on a year-long basis. So definitely making more content is the way to go. And also like a focus on different types of content. Like I spoke about Google News on this conversation, but we haven't really focused on evergreen content. And that's another opportunity to smooth out the data, like the traffic and the revenue, by getting more consistent views. Yeah, I guess. And obviously, just to come back to what we said earlier, Vinny, I think I'd turn marketing back on as well. I think that's another quick win.
No, that's great. I think there's definitely lots of avenues for growth there. I think it's great that you mentioned, even if it was a brief experiment, branching out into, another sport, into another niche, it sounds like it's paid dividends. And I'm sure you'll be able to, share with the buyer what the directions you would take it to expand into other sports. So that's great to hear. I want to ask you, though, about the risks. What would you say are some of the biggest risks with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think covering one sport is a risk in itself. Thankfully, the sport was not impacted at all by COVID, which is a big win because I know that some sports were. So we kept going through that time. And even today, it's still performing relatively well amid the pandemic. So that was really good. I think also affiliate revenue is tied to one major partner. So I think there's definitely potential risk there. But as we start to develop more opportunities, we can smooth that out. And of course, just like being exposed to Google through our high organic search traffic, I think, that's always a risk as well.
For sure. No, I think that makes sense. Those are always especially the Google algorithm updates, it's always going to be the thorn in our side, especially for affiliate sites, for sure. Last few questions from me then, Jay, because I'm just rounding up this interview then. How much support are you willing to offer buyers?
Yeah, so I've got it listed as 30 days of email support and 2 calls as well.
It's great to hear. Are you willing to commit to a non-compete?
Yeah, absolutely.
And are you open to something like an earnout?
Yeah, like I would prefer the cash up front, but like I'm obviously happy to have a conversation with any potential buyer.
Awesome. Last question from me then. If you put yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why would you say that this is a business worth buying?
Yeah, sure. So I think the key one is that annual performance is growing like at a rapid rate. So like revenue has doubled in 2021 and and that just goes with the sport. It's a fast growing sport. It's a relatively new sport as well. It's not as well established as some of the other major leagues in America, for example. And I think we can tie the site's growth to the growth of the sport itself. And I think that's a great opportunity. And I think that a new buyer would be able to come in with a fresh perspective and find opportunities that I have not been able to discover.
Awesome. Well, is there anything you'd like to add that you think I might have missed during the interview?
No, Vinny, I think you covered everything, actually.
Awesome. Well, Jake, it's been a real pleasure hearing from you and finding more about yourself as well as your business. I'm really looking forward to seeing it get sold to the right buyer in hopefully the very near future.
Thanks, Vinny.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 57677. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked the listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.